I'm Meg Major. Welcome to Grocery COVID Live. Joining us for this segment, per usual, is our exec editor, John Springer, our content manager, Kat Martin, our senior editor, Jenn Strailey, and of course, the supermarket guru, Phil Lempert. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Meg.
Hey, Phil. What's on your mind today?
Well, a couple things. First of all, according to Nielsen, they issued the top 5 growing categories of the week. So starting with number 5, aerosol disinfectants up 157%. Baking powder is still on the list, 170%. I guess people are staying at home and baking. Fresh meat alternatives, 224%. We're going to talk with Kat soon about the retailers limiting the purchases of meat. Great article, Kat, and whether or not we're going to see Impossible Foods, I saw today, is launching in 1,700 Krogers. So whether or not we're going to be pushed into fresh meat alternatives. Number 2, oat milk. I still feel that the reason oat milk is up 307% is frankly that people can't find cow's milk. And the number 1, still hand sanitizer up 420%. So I guess the question that I have for, and this is going to sound very sexist, and I apologize for that, but the female group that we've got, with all these hand sanitizers that are alcohol based, do we think that the next step is going to be hand creams? Everybody is using these hand sanitizers that are really drying out their hands big time. How do you feel? And John, maybe, I don't know, you have soft hands, so you worry about it
I do
too.
not have soft hands.
Yeah, I don't either. So, but no, seriously, with all these hand sanitizers, are we going to see growth in hand cream? Think about that for a second. The other question that I've got is the report just came out again, according to Nielsen, that U.S. consumers spent about $100 million on meal kits in retail stores. That's double what it was last year. Is this going to be, does COVID-19 resurrect meal kits being sold in stores?
I can give you some thoughts on that. Just this morning, HelloFresh reported gangbuster numbers. That story may be on our website now. I filed it about an hour ago. They had nothing but good news. Their business was on a pretty good trajectory to begin with, so they were realizing some 20-some% growth, and then last 3 weeks of March things went crazy. They were able to ramp up production, add more workers, get more meals out there. I believe their U.S. sales were up somewhere in the range of 90%, and orders and customers and everything else. Their CEO said, the online meal kits are, was pushing how affordable they were, particularly as compared not only to restaurant food, but also to regular groceries that you would buy over the internet because of the high delivery costs and inconveniences associated with that. So that's an interesting thing to watch. They've got a sub brand, HelloFresh. It's called Every Plate, which has got a lower price point. It's kind of a discount model within the full scale model. It'll be interesting to see if that grows.
For sure. Jen's also been covering the meal kit success story in the past couple of weeks. Jenn, do you have anything to add to John's?
Yeah, just that, Blue Apron isn't tracking as well as HelloFresh, but they were almost delisted from the stock exchange pretty recently. And so considering that, they've made a huge comeback. And just talking to a lot of suppliers too, who are looking at retooling their business. They're not able to launch new products now because there's no way to, grocery stores can't promote anything new right now. They have too much on their plates. So
what happens after this?
Suppliers are getting into that too.
Are the meal kits selling because people are now getting tired of cooking at home? And after this whole thing happens and we get somewhat normal, meal kits start fading again?
I was thinking that too, because I think probably, but who knows? Because it could have shifted people's habits, but I think primarily the growth would have, don't you agree, came from the simple fact that people were avoiding going to grocery stores. There was limited supplies. So if you can place those orders weeks and weeks ahead, But even as John's story reported this morning, with HelloFresh, they didn't even they stopped accepting new customers. So it was really, if you were an existing customer, you were foot in the door and you were in good shape. But to refuse to accept new customers for a business that had been struggling that mightily, to me was fairly telling.
And
I think we also have to look at what the workplace is going to be like in the future too. I think if people continue to work from home, like if offices don't bounce back very quickly, I think people are going to continue to have to cook or want to cook. They'll have the time to do it because they won't have the hour-long commute or whatever they had before. So that might also keep the meal kits elevated because people will now have, some extra time in the evenings to prepare a family meal. And maybe they've gotten used to eating together as a family too, in home, instead of going to a restaurant or going through the drive-through.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind our viewers, add your comments to the Facebook chat box. Leah McGrath asked, people can't buy cow's milk? What? Yeah, Leah. Some of the stores here in California, very light on cow's milk. I'm not sure around the country. Meg, are you finding that? Kat, John, Jen, are your stores fully stocked with milk?
Yes, ours are in PA for the most part, but there's still been a lot of dumping because of most of that supply, 50% of it or whatever they say goes to the restaurant area of the business. So they just simply, it's just a distribution mechanism and it's not able to be, so there's been a lot of dumping here in PA. It's heartbreaking.
Well, and I've always been able to get milk when I've wanted it. I've had to be a little bit flexible on brand. I haven't always gotten the brand I want. But I think it really just depends. Like sometimes I know I've gotten to the store right after a truck because it's fully stocked and you can get everything. And then other times I'm like, oh, there's 3 gallons left. I get one of the last 3. So it really depends on when they get the trucks too.
Yeah, I was going to agree with what Kat said. I think it's a function of the DSD delivery of the milk, and some stores are probably getting a little bit more attention than others. So I think it depends a little bit on where you shop and when you shop.
And Jen, and then we've got somebody in the milk industry who's commenting. But Jen, let me ask you, what's going on in Denver?
In Denver, I haven't seen milk shortages like that. I mean, like Kat said, I mean, there've been a couple of times, I only buy organic milk, but I mean, I still have a son who's pretty young, and so he drinks a lot of milk, and maybe like the grass-fed option isn't there, but I haven't been presented with no milk.
So Michael works with the milk industry. He says there's plenty of cow's milk and sales are up significantly, not just in initial store surge, but continue as people drink more milk while at home. Oat milk is up too, but that's a percentage. To give a perspective, there's more dairy milk sold in about a third of one day than oat milk all year. Percentages off small base don't tell the full story. IRI data supports dairy milk sales are up, way up, and isn't a supply issue for most retailers. Michael, thank you for your comment. Meg, let's go back to you, and why don't we kick off with John's excellent story that I am livid about, and I'll tell you why in a minute, John, about Walmart, what Walmart is doing.
Yeah, Phil. So as we talked about in our previous segments, obviously grocery delivery is skyrocketing with no end in sight. And to that end, Walmart has recently revealed plans to expand its express delivery platform to 2,000 stores in the coming weeks, which will enable online consumers to have the option to shop an edited selection of groceries and essentials for delivery in less than 2 hours, which, as John can explain a little bit further, basically allows them to buy their way out of the congested delivery queues accompanied by COVID-19. John, could you add a little more color and tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, well, I think I know what Phil might be upset about, and that would be the idea that a company that's kind of built on the value proposition for customers is introducing new levels of luxury to the experience that they offer. But what I would say is that, the congested delivery isn't necessarily limited to Walmart, and probably in a lot of cases isn't necessarily at Walmart, but at other guys as well. So, the internet is still a little bit of a land grab out there. So if you can kind of take the heat off someone else's delivery queues, well, come to Walmart, you can get your stuff faster. That's a way to get new customers. So yes, for Walmart shoppers, it might be a little bit of a tough proposition. I think Walmart's looking at the big picture: more shoppers, more market share stolen from other folks, and that's where you are.
But what bothers me is this is the airline model. So I fly a lot, so I get to get on the plane first. I get, upgrades and things like that, which I'm very happy about. But I'm not intending on getting on a plane anytime soon. Is this the way supermarkets are going to go? I mean, the frequent shopper card programs have been basically paperless coupons for a long time. Some retailers use the data, some other retailers don't use the data. Are we going to get to the point that if I'm a frequent shopper card, a Prime, or an executive platinum, frequent shopper card at Gelson's, that I'm going to get, special deals that somebody else isn't going to get? Is that the direction that we're headed with that?
I mean, it seems like with Walmart, that's the direction they've been kind of headed toward. And I think, Amazon and the Prime has been a good example of why they should do it. I mean, it's not just discounts on delivery, but a huge ecosystem of benefits that are available and keeps you in the fold, right? So Walmart's got a lot, to offer a customer, and to the extent that they can get something like an affinity club going, I think that's good for their. Let's put it this way. I think Walmart thinks it's good for their business overall. And then there's the question of, how does this fit into this EDLP strategy that the company was built on? And I think that those are kind of questions that they're looking at longer term.
Well, John, could I have a question, but could you look at it as a white glove service, number one, but number two, didn't they start recently also having like a membership for delivery for an unlimited? So how does this interface with that?
Well, the fast delivery part of it, the $10 fee, and that's how they execute this, by the way. The $10 fee, portion of that presumably is going to the drivers so they can prioritize those orders that come in that way. Is on top of the I think it's $98 a year to belong to Delivery Unlimited with Walmart. And Walmart's also selling its in-home service separately too. So, they're finding that, at least they're experimenting anyway with ways for customers to buy their way in. And look, once you're paying a monthly fee or what have you for a service, you're going to fight to get your money's worth out of it. So you're going to make more of those orders from the retailer you align with. Costco realizes this, Amazon realizes this. I think, Walmart knows at some level it's got to participate this way as well. And so this Delivery Unlimited thing, I think, comes up now while there's tremendous congestion in the delivery field, but is kind of part of this realization that, yes, so I think people want the idea of an ecosystem that kind of keeps people involved in sort of in the family with the retailer is something that's probably going to be around, at least for the big guys, I think.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Kat, you say that we don't have to worry about toilet paper anymore, but we have to worry about something else. Tell us about it.
Well, I think we still have to worry about toilet paper because that's still not on the store shelves. But we are now dealing with an issue with meat. And I think retailers learned something from the toilet paper fiasco, and they were a little bit more proactive this time around with limiting purchases. So now meat is now being limited in many retailers. I think Fresh Time was the first one on April 27th, which was a week ago. I don't remember which day exactly, when they started limiting meat purchases. And then Kroger came on board on May 1st and was doing it in some stores. It's not chain wide. So it kind of depends. And then, the big one I think everyone is kind of talking about is Costco, and how they're really being strict on purchases, and people are used to going to Costco and, shopping a lot and buying a lot. And now they're being limited on what they can do. So, this is all in an effort to stop panic buying. We don't want to get into a situation where you cannot buy meat. So I think retailers are being a bit proactive in this and trying to keep the supply chain running as well as they can. I mean, the processing plants are, now ordered to stay open, but whether or not they'll be able to with worker illness, and they're obviously having to slow down production with new sanitation requirements. So everything is kind of slowing down a bit. Meat is not as readily available. So retailers are really trying to stop that panic buying. But
So,
they also have to wonder, they're putting their frontline workers in charge of this. And as we saw, some people do not react well when they're told to do something in a grocery store. So, how are we?
Tell us about that.
Well, I'm referring to the Family Dollar security guard who unfortunately was killed because he had told a customer to put a face mask on in the store, and the customer refused. And that is a situation that we don't want to continue to see. But we do now have new rules in grocery stores.
Well, Meg, didn't you also witness something in Costco as it relates to meat? Tell us about that.
Yeah, to Kat's point, and especially I think Costco's meat department is really that signature flagship department for Costco. So I think customers are just kind of going about their business, loading up their carts, and at the front end, there was a clerk who had asked the customers to remove two of the SKUs in their cart and return them because they overbought. The customers were not happy and looked a little bit shocked initially, and then looked very irate. So it is bringing out the worst in people. But again, I think we continue to have to remember that, if it's beyond a cliche that we're all in it together, everybody just needs to maintain respect in stores.
So I was on a call earlier today with somebody who used to be at USDA. And basically what they were saying is that what this points out, what the pandemic points out with all these meat closures, meat factory and processor closures and so on, is that number one, that system was built to be able to give consumers cheap meat. It was all about price, getting that price down, getting that efficiency up. But because there's so few factories, when you have something like this happen, the whole system breaks. I think right now, poultry and pork production combined is running at about 60%. So what this person said is really after this, what they think is we're going to see the return to smaller processing facilities that puts less strain on the system if something happens. So that in Pittsburgh or in Chicago or in New York or in Denver, you might have a meat processing plant that only services that city. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I was talking to a lot of independents for that meat story as well. And obviously they don't have to supply 1,000 stores. They have to supply, right, maybe 10. So they have more options, but they all did say, look, we buy from smaller processing companies. We buy from these guys who can only supply our 10 stores. So, and they've had no issues with shortages or with plants shutting down. So I think that is something that we have to look at. I mean, everybody right now before this was all about local. So maybe this is the next step, you buy local. That also might mean they have to pay some higher prices too.
Yeah, and I think the whole group has said, what COVID-19 is really proving that we've got a lot of very good, smart, strong independents out there that after this are probably going to, rise to the next level. As we're talking about stores, I want to ask everybody, a question that Meg, had raised to me earlier. With the post-pandemic experience, will this teach us how much we cherish physical stores once they're all out of business? Are we going to, return to physical stores? Are we missing going shopping? Meg?
Yes, indeed. Jen, I'm going to toss that to you to kind of recap our conversation yesterday. Go ahead. You take your.
I think the words that I used were I'm out on a ledge right now.
Exactly.
Like if I don't get back to, you know, some kind of life as normal, and shopping's a big part of that. And I think what's cool about this, and we've touched on this before in other segments, but you know, the grocery store, the local grocery store in a lot of cases is so much more than a place to buy food. It's a community resource. And I think it's really interesting to see what a lot of grocers are doing, like Kroger's doing a social, you know, ice cream social virtual, you know, different stores are doing creative things to get people involved. ShopRite just launched a hashtag essential thanks, and for everybody who posts a thank you note to a frontline worker, they're going to donate $1 to a local food bank. You know, I think that there's just, you know, it's interesting to see grocers really rally around the community, and I think people are hungry for that.
Phil, I would also add to Jen's comment that I think the perils of e-commerce, which especially with like apparel and health and beauty products, when they're wrong, it's like just becomes such an ordeal to do returns online, to be unable to return and to make returns until stores open. But when we saw the developments come down yesterday with J.Crew filing bankruptcy, et cetera, I mean, there's predictions, dire predictions of what the fate of the rest of the department stores are going to happen. So again, how much more real estate are we going to see in empty boxes out there? But I still think by the time this comes to pass, depending upon how many retailers, non-grocery, survive this, will everybody's pent-up need to go shopping be dashed because so many retailers are going to struggle to either A, open, or B, have already closed. So I speak for many. I think that we're all just having a real problem not being able to just enjoy the experience, the physical, tactile experience of shopping for personal.
Meg, to your point too, it's not just like department stores or clothes, or it's food shopping too. So I never was an e-commerce food shopper. I like to go to my grocery store and, you know, wander around, and now I have to do it with the mask and kind of feel like a criminal and get out of there fast. But when I did try e-commerce, I did curbside pickup, and I found it really difficult to get exactly what I wanted. I didn't realize exactly how picky I really was until I wasn't the one picking it out. You know, and it was just like, even box sizes, like, is this the size that I normally get? I don't know. I always buy by, you know, looking on the shelf and seeing, you know, stupid hot dogs that I don't even buy normally, but I like the packages that Ziploc at the top. And then when I did it online, I didn't get those. So, you know, I mean, it's just, you don't realize how much how tactile you are when you are shopping. And it even comes down to food. So
that comes to the consumer side of it. Kat, what about the retailer? What is the retailer learning through this experience? Yes, what they're trying to do is just get as much food to people as possible, whether it's through click and collect, whether it's dark supermarkets, whatever. But is the retailer, you know, waking up to that tactile experience and really saying, when this is over, I'm going to redo my store. I'm going to make certain changes. Certainly when it comes to sanitation, the plexiglass, I mean, all those things, they're going to stay. But are we going to see, you know, more experiential in our stores?
I hope so. I hope that one thing that this spurs is that they really take a good hard look at the stores, how customers really want to shop. You know, and be able to provide that. I think there are people who want in and out, they don't care. And then there's others who like to meander. And I think what this is really going to do is the people who don't care and want in and out maybe stay with the e-commerce, and they're not going to go back into the store. Whereas the people who like that tactile, like to, you know, take 2 hours to do a grocery shop, can take 2 hours to do a grocery shop. That's maybe what stores will start servicing. They'll start putting in those stations where they can really interact with, you know, staff. They can learn, they can, you know, do a, you know, on floor short class on how to cut a pomegranate or something, you know. But I really do hope that retailers learn that, customers do want to have a good experience in their store. And
hey, Phil, I was also thinking though that there could be the hybrid model where a lot of the online classes that retailers have been hosting with healthy eating, and perhaps you'll touch on that in our segment later this week. But perhaps I was thinking that, to me, there's a place for those online learning experiences so that perhaps you don't have to physically be in a store, but you can still enjoy that the lessons that the store is imparting, be it nutrition, wellness, cooking. I think this is going to also teach retailers how better to utilize the internet for non-essential things, like telling people how much things are in an ad.
John, Jen, what do you guys think?
There's a lot in that question. I mean, I was thinking when Kat was talking, she's describing Wegmans, you know what I mean? And look, that's a difficult
Which I don't have here. So.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a wonderful store. It's fun to shop. But one, it's almost impossible to do, or everybody would do it that way. And one of the, of course, the secrets of Wegmans is that in addition to all this fun interaction and prepared foods and smells and sights and everything, they have a huge high volume supermarket attached to that as well. So you got to pull a lot of the right levers in order to do that. My other thought is, this one-way aisle thing is a disaster in stores. People aren't paying attention to it. Look, let's knock out every other aisle in center store. Let's not bring in all the products that didn't necessarily sell or were just there for a little while to make room for that. It'll make the stores a little bit more wide open. But between that, the massive investments that retailers are going to have to do for e-commerce in order to meet the demand that they've had and been unable to meet now, the expenses of it are going to be astronomical. And so I think a lot of this stuff is like, well, these would be nice things to have, but they're going to be very, very difficult things to pull off. So I'm not sure how fast things are actually going to change. I think the legacy is that the realization that things need to change is probably more pronounced than it was beforehand.
So Meg, we're going to have to wrap up, but before we wrap up, tell us some good grocery news and what that's all about.
Yeah, Phil, happily. So thanks to Jen, who came up with a great idea to model off of John Krasinski's Some Good News. Jen and I and our team have kind of come up with a new segment that we're going to run weekly, talking about 5 good things going on in the grocery world. I'm going to turn it to Jen to kind of fill out a little bit more about what we talked about in our first segment debuting yesterday.
Yeah, I think everyone's just craving some light at the end of the tunnel here, and these really challenging times have sparked a lot of creativity. And so one of the fun things was something that's not even in our industry, but that we ran in this latest segment of Some Good Grocery News, was that Mattel and Fisher-Price have gotten together to create action figures that include a grocery store clerk and delivery people. And that's pretty cool that, that we really have become, this industry has heroes now that little kids can look up to.
And also there's a slideshow on Winsight Grocery Business with the 5 things, including social connecting with Kroger. Harris Teeter teams up to help food banks. Smart and Final offers free t-shirt bags. Central Market's breakfast in bed. I like that one. And as you pointed out, Jen, the grocery workers as action heroes. I want to see a grocery worker as action hero that looks like Meg.
No, Phil, you.
And with that, thank you all for joining us today. We will be back Thursday, another special edition. We're going to talk about the role of retail dietitians during COVID-19. We're going to talk all about health and wellness and all weigh in with that. Annette Maggi from Retail Dietitians Business Alliance will be our guest and tell us what retail dietitians are going to be doing after this and what they're doing now. So with that, thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to add your comments on our Facebook Live page, and also all of our episodes, if you missed any, are on Winsight Grocery Business Facebook and on Supermarket Guru Facebook. And with that, we will see you Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And thank you all.
Thanks, Phil.